Welcome to Hidden History, Stories from the Secret City. I'm Keith McDaniel, along with my co-host, Ray Smith. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Keith. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry about this little spot on my forehead. It's not,
Oh,
at my age, you have to be worried about cancer. It's
yeah,
not cancer, but did have to go to the dermatologist and had a little spot that they had to
yeah,
zap.
yeah.
So, you
I
know,
do that. I
but
do
with
that.
this blank canvas up here, those little things show up. They're kind of prominent.
I understand. I go every 6 months, and
Yeah.
they freeze a little spot here and a little spot there. The top of my ears have all been frozen a number of times.
Oh yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean, Matt. You'll figure that out. You'll learn that one of these days.
Uh,
I was in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago and thought I was well prepared, but as I came back and got my hair cut a couple of days afterwards, the stylist said, "You got quite a bit of sun on your head." I thought, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. You'll be okay." So I do have a couple of interesting spots that I'll have looked at soon enough.
Well, unless somebody's 8 feet tall, they're not going to see those spots. So,
That's very true. That's
I
very
wouldn't
true.
worry about it. All right, we do have our special guest with us, Matt Mullins. Matt,
Hello. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Matt is from AMSI, and I guess you're what, the marketing director or vice president or something, aren't you?
hey,
Today, I'm happy to be the director of marketing and communications.
There you go. There you
Yes.
go.
and for our visitors that are not from Oak Ridge, that's the American Museum of Science and Energy. We use way too many acronyms here in Oak Ridge.
I would vouch for that. Yes.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you with us today, and you're going to give us some information about an upcoming event that I think people will be interested in. Oak Ridge is right in the middle of this nuclear renaissance. Everywhere you turn, we've got something new happening and something going on. Just last week, we had the NOW conference. Now, there I go again, you see, Nuclear Opportunities Workshop in Knoxville, and we had 1,000 people there. And Matt, you were over there. You saw it. It was just
Mhm.
a huge gathering, and it's folks who are talking about bringing nuclear into this area and getting us to the point where we can provide electricity to the artificial intelligence data centers that are coming our way. And I just saw a few minutes ago another online post on social media about Tennessee being selected as one of 4 sites in the nation to build some huge data centers here. So you're
Yeah,
right in
I,
the middle of what's going on there.
yeah, and as we were talking before we started, for people to know, I mean, they're serious about this. There's going to be lots of jobs that are going to be coming available in the next decade or so in the nuclear industry and in all the types of things that Oak Ridge is doing. And as people know, I teach high school in Kingston. I teach video production to students. But our very first day for going back to school this fall is Monday. And we have been told that all the high school and middle school teachers from Roane County, which is the county in which Kingston is in, will be taking a tour of all the nuclear facilities on Monday as a part of our in-service and our professional development, uh, just to let us know what's coming down the pike as far as job opportunities and to be able to communicate those types of things to our students that are in high school now, but will be graduating soon and either pursuing, employment or college or things such as that. So they're really planning. These are not the kinds of things that just happen over months. These are things that happens over years and decades. So anyway,
well,
yeah. So that's what's.
it's really quite fascinating simply because there's an understanding throughout this region. If you kind of listen to all of the different conversations, there's an expectation between 2 and 10 years of some 15,000 potential construction jobs alone. That's people swinging hammers, welding, doing the electrical work, human resources people, the accounting people, all of those ancillary services within the nuclear industry that are not nuclear engineers by title and trade. And so it's really interesting. I had a gentleman I was speaking with this week at the Nuclear Opportunities Workshop conference stating that at TVA in the Kingston area, the majority of all of the campgrounds are full because there are contractors coming in and workers coming in to work on those sites, and they're coming in RVs and campers, and so they're overwhelming the campsites.
Yeah.
So if today we have this influx of new workers coming into the area, Keith, the most incredible thing I think that is presenting itself as an opportunity is that, as I stated, the jobs that we're talking about are not just nuclear engineers.
Yeah.
So you can have a freshman right now, and I would encourage you to tell them they need marketing people, they need communications people, they need people to go out and to impart and help shape the narrative that nuclear energy is measurably cleaner, safer, more cost effective, and has the potential of making a true positive environmental impact throughout the region and then across the planet. So when you talk to the individuals at Kairos Power and you wonder why they're smiling when they're talking, it's because they're really excited about their work, because their work has the potential to create cleaner, sustainable nuclear energy. That is an incredible set of opportunities. So those jobs coming up are not just nuclear engineer jobs. They are compensation, HR, all of these types of jobs. And the emphasis is there's a group of kids in most schools. Their parents are watching out. Their parents are taking care, making sure they're checking all the boxes, dotting I's, crossing T's. And there's a percentage of kids who struggle to get through school.
Yeah.
Those kids have jobs waiting for them. The kids who struggle, who say, I can't work in a nuclear industry. Oh, man, you're wrong.
Yeah.
The nuclear industry needs you. So, Keith, you're in the catbird seat.
Well, I had a couple of 2 or 3 students that graduated this year that I've had students for several years. And these were kids that, there's some kids that you just know are well built to go to college. And then there's some kids that are not, they're going to go into the trades. Well, there's 2 or 3 guys that graduated this year that I thought for sure they were going to college. And when I found out what they were doing, no, they're both, 2 of them are in the apprenticeship program with the Electrical Brotherhood here in Oak Ridge. So they're going to become electricians. I saw where TVA, this was back in the spring, they were advertising for the Kingston site. They were hiring electricians, and they were starting them out at like $50 or $60 an hour. Okay?
Right.
So and in my field, how does that relate? How does audio and video relate to the nuclear industry? Well, and I told Ray this. I took one of my classes of advanced students, and we did a tour of the enhanced. What is it? The enhanced training.
It's the Oak Ridge Enhanced Technology and Training Center.
Yeah, the Ortec Center. Yeah.
Yeah, and we went there and did a tour of that, and they were amazed by it. But what was amazing is my principal told me this when they came back. He asked one of the students, how was it? And they said, well, I'm amazed that they use the same exact tools that we use in our classroom. So, and that's when I started this program. That's what I said I wanted to do. I wanted to recreate a professional environment with professional tools that they would be using. So for the most part, I've been able to do that. So when kids graduate from my program in audio and video production, they'll have a real base understanding of what it's like in the industry to be able to create. And that just makes them more marketable if they want to go into that field. Most of them won't, but some of them may. So anyway.
Well, and what's fantastic about that center in and of itself from a television perspective is that gigantic LED wall was modeled after the new generation of studios that are going up in Atlanta, where they're doing work with Marvel and all of these gigantic companies. But the other note on that, which I think is really spectacular, and I wish I had this conduit when my kids were younger, is that now Y12, CNS, Oratech, and those folks, in under the model of how to train the next generation of employees, they're hiring game designers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're turning the training modules into gamification, or they're gamifying that.
Yeah.
So you can now have these kids that have grown up as digital natives and understand that digital landscape intuitively go into game design. I hate to say that there's a moment where now every kid can justify hours and hours in front of Minecraft. I'm not saying that, but we're really close.
Yeah.
Because those folks now in these tech fields are hiring game designers, media designers, content designers for training. Because what they found out at that training facility is that if you sit somebody down in an augmented reality situation and you walk them through a training module to do something. In fact, I went through a training module with the Tennessee College of Applied Technologies for their welding, their augmented reality welding training.
Yeah.
You put on the set and then you guide this welding tool. And then it teaches you the proper placement, the distance, the angle, the whole thing. And the retention rate from that virtual experience is unmatched. It has never been seen before. These people are now able to retain because they have an experiential moment in a virtual setting. So they retain that, and you begin immediately building muscle memory in that welding process without the expense of having to pay for all of those materials, putting them together.
Sure.
So you get this great moment where you can now train and teach and retain the information exponentially faster. And these are people that are game designers. It's super cool. The landscape is just shifting. And the fact that now you're producing students that have hands-on experience with the same types of tools, that's absolutely fantastic.
And we also, this summer, I got certified by Apple to be an authorized Final Cut Pro trainer. So now students will have an opportunity when they graduate to be certified, have an industry certification in Final Cut Pro. Now, not everybody uses Final Cut Pro, but as you know, Matt, all those video editing software is all 80% the same. You know, if you know how to use one, in about another week you can be an expert on another one. You know, so anyway, but I did Final Cut because that's what I know. That's what I've been working on for over 25 years.
Right.
But anyway, so we got off track. Sorry about that. Matt, tell us about what's coming up.
Yeah. So again, thank you both for letting me have an opportunity to speak to your audience. I appreciate it. I would dare to say that the audience that watches this is fairly savvy with the Oak Ridge community and the surrounding network of technologies in this space. And the American Museum of Science and Energy and the AMSI Foundation and vicariously the city of Oak Ridge, we are hosting Nuclear Science Week this year. This will be from October 20th through 24th. It'll be hosted at areas across the city of Oak Ridge. And this event has been happening for nearly 20 plus years. There are 20 plus countries that are involved with celebrating nuclear science this week. And for us in Oak Ridge, it's an opportunity to really emphasize a couple of things. One is we have gone 80 plus years without a nuclear conflict. That's phenomenal. So recognizing that is very important. But we also need to recognize the various trails of breadcrumbs that initial moment has created. So for Nuclear Science Week, we're talking about something that's going to include not only nuclear energy, innovative nuclear technologies, but also nuclear medicine, nuclear sciences. You get into isotope production, which goes into deep space exploration. There are folks in conjunction with Oak Ridge National Lab and some other startups that are building isotope-based substations that will go at the bottom of the ocean. And those will basically be substations from Europe to the Americas to Africa to wherever people are sending large amounts of data and electricity through cables. Now these things will last in perpetuity, which is kind of a fascinating thing. But it really kind of covers the gambit of what nuclear includes. In Oak Ridge, we have the unique opportunity to talk about Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which are powered by materials that have roots in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. In addition to that, we get to talk about the nuclear Navy and things like of that nature, and lots of medicine. I can't tell you how many grandfathers I've had come into the museum who talk about having received prostate cancer or treatments. I apologize. And they found out that all of that was based out of technologies rooted in Oak Ridge. That's a phenomenal swatch of people collectively to be able to have an impact with. So what we're doing is very intentional. We have a large number of nuclear companies moving into the area. And as we stated earlier, we have a large number of workers that need to fill these positions. If we have an expectation of some 15,000 jobs on construction alone coming into this area, we need to make sure that at no point in the next decade, there is a moment where we as a community falter. So what that means is we need to ensure that all of those students understand there are jobs here in this community. If you are in the workforce and you are looking to change jobs, this is a sweet time to go back and either finish out a degree or get a certification or do something like that. There's a gentleman who teaches a nuclear class at Roane State, Joe Steinbeck, a fantastic, brilliant man. I was talking to an executive at one of his classes, and he said for the next 3 to 4 years, everybody who graduates from this 2-year certificate course, I'm going to walk in this classroom and drop a contract for $70,000 to $80,000 in their lap. No questions asked. That's not too bad out of a 2-year certification program for a nuclear reactor operator. Yeah. That's pretty good.
Let me interrupt you just a moment to put in a plug for history. I'm a part of Joe Steinbeck's program that he brings to these students through the TCAT. What does that stand for? Tennessee
College of Applied Technologies.
Applied Technology. That's what I couldn't get. He gives me about an hour and a half in the first morning to talk about the history of Oak Ridge. And it's amazing. The students that he has, they are eager to learn. And they're coming with just the most minor understanding of the history of, I mean, they know they're getting into something phenomenal, but they don't know how it came about. They don't understand where it's coming from. So the history of it gives them a foundation that they can understand better what they're getting involved in. And Joe does a marvelous job giving them the very simple, basic information that they need. I mean, he carries a briefcase full of sample materials that he can talk to them about. And it's a phenomenal program. I'm really glad to be a part of it. So I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, Joe's a brilliant guy, and we help with the other side of that component. So we bring in additional materials and sources and give the students who have had a finite technical understanding of the field they're going into, and we give them additional hands-on experience. Yes. So they get to handle the sources and a Geiger counter and figure out time, distance, and shielding, which are kind of fundamental attributes of this work. And it's interesting because even at the NOW conference, we had students who were about to graduate going into the nuclear field, and we had that same set of materials out to do time, distance, and shielding. And we had people in their graduate level courses say, I've never actually held a Geiger counter.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's really interesting. There is a generation of these brilliant technical people who have a phenomenal acumen of their field that don't know the bits and pieces and details of the history of what they're going into. And I think that's just, I don't think that's new. I think that's kind of been consistent through time in higher education, but it's really unique. And so for us at the American Museum of Science and Energy to talk to students on a consistent basis, give them the history from Ray, give them top shelf training from Dr. Steinbeck, and then let this museum come in and give them hands-on application. you're hitting moments that will trigger memory, experience, hands-on. That makes a well-rounded student, in my personal opinion. So those opportunities are what we're working for. We're working with Oak Ridge schools to develop new curriculum for them. We've developed virtual classes, and all of this kind of comes back to the alignment for what we're doing for Nuclear Science Week. So on the 20th, we're going to throw a little party at the museum. It's actually going to be at the K-25 Interpretive Center and the K-25 Atomic History Center. And we're going to welcome people into town. We have quite an impressive guest list of folks that hopefully we'll be able to swing by during the week. That Monday morning, we're going to continue to offer our standard DOE public facilities bus tour that will go through the 3 sites. We'll have our reception in the evening. And then when we jump into Tuesday, we really kind of get some meat on the bones. We're going to start off Tuesday with a dirt tour. It's kind of an odd sounding thing, but as we were talking just before this, before we started recording this, we are going to travel to the various sites in and around Oak Ridge and Roane County that are turning dirt for nuclear development. That is a situational awareness opportunity. Not only do we want to have guests in the area that we are introducing and saying, look at what's in the sandbox, kids. This is really, really impressive. But we also want to provide an opportunity for community members, members of the media and the press, who don't really understand the broad stroke of this effort to bring nuclear into the region. So we're going to have our dirt tour that will go through those sites. At each one of those locations, we'll have a representative jump on, talk to 10 to 15 minutes, pop off, and then we'll move on to the next site. This is what I call the multi-billion-dollar tour, because as you go through these sites, there's a lot of money being invested in this area, and it's pertinent to understand the breadth and width of this opportunity. That evening, we will offer a tour of Oak Ridge High School's Innovation Laboratories. This will be hosted by Dr. Holly Cross and some of her associates. And we're going to go through one of the most innovative manufacturing laboratories on a high school basis in the country. Dr. Mark Buckner has been able to bring in, along with folks at Oak Ridge Schools, several $1 million to build up a lab that is actually functioning as a subcontractor to facilities within the federal network in this community. So if you suddenly now have this opportunity where you have high school students designing, building, using hardware and milling out material using subtractive manufacturing or additive manufacturing, you have created a moment where students in high school are applying learned technology for a product and for a service. That's timeline, that's workforce, that's logistics, that's management, that's technical understanding. Phenomenal setup. So Dr. Cross is going to offer a tour of that. Then right after that, kind of dovetailing in, we'll be at Roane State, and we are going to do a top-notch job fair. This is in conjunction with the Oak Ridge Chamber of Commerce and Roane State, their Oak Ridge campus. And a majority of our partners in the area that are new, innovative nuclear sites will be having HR representatives present to answer questions about what employment looks like over the next decade. My intention is that all of those partners will have a scale that will say hiring in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and beyond. That way, Keith, as your freshmen come into your class, they can say, I'll be out of here in 4 years. I can get a degree in 8. And I know that at this timeline, Kairos will be hiring for X, Y, and Z. Orano will now have operational facilities, and they will be hiring for all of these positions. This is to create a realistic, applicable timeline for the community and students. In addition to that, we also want to delineate, and the folks at the East Tennessee Economic Council, who organize the Nuclear Opportunities Workshop, do a great job at this, where they will give the people in attending this event a little tag that will say student or presenter or something like that. That way, our partners know who they're talking to. I think it's fantastic. All of these are open public events, but when we have recruiters on site talking to students and recent graduates, they don't need to spend 45 minutes talking about the history of the widget with Uncle Joe. They need to talk to Sally about getting a job in 4 years. How does Sally get prepared to be employed gainfully in this community, in this region, through her interests? So we're very intentionally trying to align the people that are going to be looking for work and the people that are going to be hiring for work. That way, we kind of create a unique opportunity. Last year, we had 100 plus people show up with resumes and suits, ready to walk onto a job site the next day. That's a phenomenal turnout. And that was done with a fair amount of advertising. This year, our intention is to blow the advertising out of the water, connect early with schools, with trade schools, with universities, so that we can open these opportunities so that students can come in. That job fair is also going to host, with partners like ORAU and Y12 and I believe the University of Tennessee, resume camps. So you can show up with your resume and somebody will be able to sit there and go with your red pen. Too many commas, not enough commas. How do you spell your name? Because sometimes people need practical advice on hiring. If you show up and your shirt's really wrinkled for a job interview, that's not the best first impression. So it's going to be those notes. So that should be a phenomenal opportunity. Like I said, the Oak Ridge Chamber of Commerce is helping us head that project up. Bree Robinson over there is doing a phenomenal job. She's a force to be reckoned with. Then we move into Wednesday, and Wednesday is education focused. And I know this is a lot of information, and I apologize for that. Wednesday, beginning around 8:30 until around 7:30 that night. This is an open educational forum. This is a gigantic STEM event. We have monies from the University of Tennessee to get buses. So we are in the process of working through buses to get students bussed in from around the area. I have at least one bus going to Bearden that's paid for, and at least one bus going to Hardin Valley Academy that's paid for. I need to know where else to spend this money. So drop me a note or something like that in the comments and we'll figure that part out. But this is a gigantic STEM event, and this is a hands-on opportunity. Oak Ridge schools are taking a fantastic initiative. They're going to bus in all of their 8th grade students for this event on the 22nd now. In addition to that, we're going to have Oak Ridge National Lab. They're going to have their trailers on site. I believe TVA is going to have some trailers, possibly even Junior Achievement. So it will look a bit like a carnival out there. We hope to have some large construction vehicles on site because those are jobs too. We need to understand that the nuclear renaissance is not defined by people with strictly engineering degrees. You're going to have somebody who's going to turn a wrench and plug in a cable. Those construction vehicles on site are representative of the next decade plus worth of effort. So again, we're really trying to balance our responsiveness to make sure that every student has a possible viewpoint of where they could go within this industry. So that will be a large STEM event. All Oak Ridge school teachers are receiving their professional development credit that day by coming to Nuclear Science Week, because again, this is an awareness opportunity. If we are not educating our teachers, we're missing an opportunity. Keith, that's why you guys on Monday are heading out to Roan to K-25 and those other sites, because these employers need to impact the ones who are preparing the next generation of workforce.
Yeah.
That's all teachers. That's all educators. That's all those constructive public positions that are in a situation of awareness to say, these are the jobs that we're working to bring into the area. If you want to work in these high-paying, technical, skilled jobs, this is how you do it. We are taking the opportunity to introduce nuclear understanding at the elementary school level. So we're working with the Muse to develop probably about a 20-minute video module that will be delivered to anybody with web access. And this will be an introduction to the atom at an elementary school level, because we got to start somewhere. And atoms are fundamental if you want to talk about weather, electricity, bees, building, cars, all of those things, they begin with atoms. So Let's take the conversation from the first brick and move it all the way through a place like K25, which is one of the few sites on the planet that has experienced the full cycle of nuclear development, from developing a site that put this material together for the Manhattan Project, years later through work, and now having been cleaned up and reintroduced back to the community. That's a phenomenal work and something worth celebrating for sure. As we go through that Wednesday and wrap up, there will be lots of professional and educational development. So we will have modules and free curriculum for teachers throughout the region. We are working to communicate with every school that is within a 90-minute drive from Oak Ridge, because we're giving away curriculum. There are people who are in Cookeville who are really close to probably being able to just jump on over and move into Roane County for this work. So it's our opportunity to communicate effectively with all of these groups. Now, Thursday, as we move into that, this is a great moment where we get to hear something from Ray as well. 80 years is a nice long time, and it's been, well, I guess Ray, since the Manhattan Project in 1943, Oak Ridge was the first.
Right.
Yes. So
from November of 42.
Okay, so we have this lineage from November 42 all the way to today. And on that Thursday, we get to occupy the historic Oak Ridge Playhouse, and we're going to present historical perspectives of that early community. As Ray can speak to readily, and Keith, yourself as well, that early community was dynamic. It was very rarefied, and the experience that community is something that I think we still have a difficult time really wrapping our heads around. So we're taking an opportunity Thursday. Ray will present some information on a panel at the moment, I believe, with Mike Stallo. I'm going to try and get Carla Mullins from the History Center to panel this, and then let you gentlemen talk, and then we'll fill in the gaps. I think we'll get some folks from the Scarborough Center to present. We'll also have presentations, hopefully, from Oak Ridge National Lab, CNSY 12, and TVA, if all goes well. In addition to this, we'll have some special guests, some technical guests. We are working on getting a couple of folks from the Space Force, and one of the gentlemen is with the Air Force, I'm going to say this incorrectly, Air Force History Center, and he is an expert on propulsion in space, particularly the use of nuclear fuels for propulsion in deep space exploration. That's just kind of a mind-numbing topic for me. I just want to hear this guy talk. So
he's going to talk about plutonium-238.
Yes, exactly. So if all goes well that evening, after our presentation at the Playhouse, which will wrap up at 5 o'clock, our intention is then to move down to the tennis courts and, in conjunction with the national parks, host their final tennis court dance of the season. And if we can get all of our friends and family out there that night to cut a rug on the tennis courts, I think that'll be a lot of fun. They usually do a great job, and it's a wonderful presentation. And I really appreciate the national parks for letting us hijack their excellent work. So that's a big shout out to those guys there. Then on Friday, we go into something that I'm really excited about, and this will be hosted at the American Museum of Science and Energy, and that is our Cutting Edge Nuclear Tech Expo. And that is where we get to highlight not just energy, but isotopes for deep space exploration. This is where we've talked about those jobs on Tuesday. We've talked about the future of the work through STEM on Wednesday. We've talked about the historical precedents for this cutting edge technology on Thursday. And on Friday, man, there's a gigantic bow on that day that we get to peel off together. Because when we look into this Friday activity, we're going to see those cutting edge tools and technologies that within this community of nuclear professionals, we talk about very casually. But if the people at Food City and the people at Kroger really understood the breadth of this work and the global impact that the work in Oak Ridge is creating and perpetuating, this community would be beside itself. And then the community would then go, hey, you know what? We are pretty good. We've done some really incredible things on this planet. That is really, really exciting. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to try and help pull these things together, because traditionally in Oak Ridge, and I know both of you can speak to this, sharing of information is not what we're good at. We're really good at working in a silo and doing one thing to perfection, and almost a scooch beyond perfection. And now we've reached this kind of collective moment in the community where we're kind of peering through that metaphorical barbed wire fence and saying, "Oh, you guys have education stuff? We do that. Can we help each other? We can. All right, let's do something slightly more exceptional than what we've done as individuals." So now there are unique opportunities where partners from Oak Ridge National Lab, ORAU, Ray, you know all of these abbreviations and can fill in all these gaps. I always get lost in the jumble. But these groups are now coming together to ask questions about how they can partner together. In my years of living here, and both of you, I think, could speak to this. This is unique.
Yep.
This is rare. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and I hope that the city of Oak Ridge will support what this week is doing. We're also selling a multiple museum pass for the week, and this little pass will get you into all of the museums in the area for free, as many times as you would like. The Oak Ridge Children's Museum will be offering a $1 discount during Nuclear Science Week, but all the rest of the museums, free access into those spots, or discounted access in some cases. In addition to that, it's also going to get you discounts at area retailers, particularly through Jackson Square. So if you're coming in from out of town, if you have folks in, or you're just looking for something to do during the week, that's going to kind of make you more aware of what this community is doing, this is the week. Dial in on this one, because this is going to give you some really interesting things. Like I said, if you're worried about what the work is in the future for this community, we're going to tell you all about it, and it's going to be free to the public. If you're worried about what your kids are going to be learning over the next several years, we're going to tell you all about it, and it's going to be free to the public. If you're curious about what has happened, why Oak Ridge is significant, why all of this work is here, we're going to tell you all about that. And if you have any questions about what is on the horizon, stand back. We're going to blow your socks off, and we're going to tell you all about that too. So it's a very innovative week. It's full of opportunities and unique insight by people who at the tops of their field within this industry and within a broad brush stroke of this industry. If it's got the word nuclear or atomic attached to it, we're going to have some sort of representation in Oak Ridge so that people can experience this firsthand and in person. That was a mouthful.
Oh, that's good. No, and you're exactly right. Oak Ridge does, as the mayor says, great things happen in Oak Ridge every day. And that's right. There are phenomenal things taking place here in research and development and in many aspects of the nuclear industry. But we have a hard time promoting ourselves, patting ourselves on the back, or even communicating effectively what's going on here. I mean, we can talk to one another and use our acronyms and we know what we're doing. But when we start talking to the public, if we use that same approach, we're going to lose them. There's a technique that we don't do well, and that is to communicate to the general audience what's actually happening scientifically here. It's difficult to do. Keith, years ago, Keith put together 2 documentary films, The Oak Ridge Story, The War Years, in 1945 to 2006. They still are the best tool that we have to give students or anyone else. In fact, I was just at a program in Nashville last week where there were teachers there, about I don't know, about 50 teachers from all across the state. And I just happened to be sitting by one of them, and all you have to do is mention you're from Oak Ridge and you get attention. I mean, people really do want to learn and know about it. So I asked her if she had any instruction in her class about the Manhattan Project, and she said, "No, I don't." And I said, "Would you like it?" And she said, "Yes, I would love it." And I told her, I said, "Well, just take," and I gave her my card. It has the link to all of those documentary films on it. And I said, "Take Oak Ridge history, or Oak Ridge story, the war years, and show a little section of it to your students. Have them write down questions that they would like to ask the Oak Ridge City historian." And I said, pick a little section that's got me in it so you can at least have them identify with the person that's going to be talking to them. And then I said the next day or two, just give me a FaceTime call on your iPhone and I will answer those students' questions directly to them, and you can project it up on the screen for the entire class to see. And it's amazing. Our technology allows us to do something so simple, but you have to have the tools to make it work. And that War Years, a documentary film, gets their attention. And it's amazing the kind of questions that'll come to me after they watched a little section of that documentary film. So I'm proud to see that Nuclear Science Week is promoting understanding to the general public. I think that is an area where we are not doing as well as we should.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Matt. It's interesting, right? I was in AMSI not too long ago, and I actually had forgotten about this, and they showed the 10-minute video, and that is that's basically my War Years movie condensed down to 10 minutes. I edited that down and re-recorded the narration with somebody else. So I'd forgotten they're still using it all these years, 20 years later.
Well, it's a good news.
We show that film every day, several times.
Yeah. Well, good.
So you're far from being forgotten quite yet, contrary to your point earlier. So we keep that rolling because, again, so the tourism numbers are, within the past several years, we've had a 15 to 30% increase of people moving into this area relative to which numbers you want to look at. Right. So if we were generous and we took 25%, that's 1/4 of the population that doesn't know about Oak Ridge, that doesn't have that familiarity. Yes. And so we come in contact with a lot of people through the museum, because a museum is a place that people, well, unless you're 10 or younger, you make a choice to go to a museum.
Yeah.
You decide to go and have that experience. So we have people that come to the museum and we'll have conversations. We'll say, well, are you familiar with the history? He said, we didn't know this place existed. We had no idea. So then we get to make this introduction. And what's really unique about this is not only, again, because we're at a museum which is very unique and is artifact heavy, we get to talk about technologies from the Manhattan Project into, if anybody here is watching this on a cell phone, that touchscreen technology also has roots in Oak Ridge. So what we really get to do in, my subversive mindset for Nuclear Science Week is we get to actually talk about all of the technology, because it all has some sort of pathway back to, this is going to sound like a real hard pitch for O&M, material science. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. That is your gateway drug into science and technology.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah. So, just whip a little material science on the kids. Boy, you'll get them pulled in, because, the next phase, as we'd mentioned earlier, is Oak Ridge is one of 4 cities that have been chosen to be kind of earmarked potentially for AI. What is the word I'm looking for suddenly?
Data centers.
Yes, data centers. Thank you very much. The understanding now is that data centers and nuclear are going to be hand in hand. You're not really going to go far from one without the other, because when you can shrink down the infrastructure to build those utilities to power those gigantic electricity black holes, you've really got to have that source material to create the opportunity. So I think Oak Ridge, if I were to put a couple of dollars on it, I think we're pretty close to probably being, of those four, one of the top two, if not the one on top. Simply
Yeah,
because the nuclear technology will grow up side by side. I mean, these things will just be lockstep in the next decade. So, yeah, when we talk about Nuclear Science Week, it's also how do you connect the nuclear thing to the apparatus? There's an entire science of connecting the reactor to the grid. What does that look like? How do you it's a fantastic spider web of technology. It's really exciting stuff. But yeah, we've got to do a better job making sure that everybody in the community understands this. And I've stated to a few people, the idea of growth is exciting for only a fraction of the people. For everybody else, it's change and it's scary. And you don't want to see anything ever happen to your grandparents' house. At some point, time moves on, and that house is going to change either through a new owner or a new situation. And we look at Oak Ridge as kind of our grandma's house. This is a great little community. It's a great small space. As this work comes in, it will change our community. If we're not having the conversations about positive change, constructive change, environmentally, socially, economically, through the education system, we're going to miss an opportunity to belay fear and worry, to take that concern and minimize that, not minimize, but to alter it into understanding that this will improve the school systems. This will put money into the community. We can build parks, we can build green spaces, we can do this, but let's start having the conversation sooner than later. So I think a large part of it is communicating with the public so we can reduce anxiety as well. Change is exciting for some and terrifying for others.
Actually, the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, came here when he was first appointed, and he left us with a challenge. The challenge was to do just what you've been describing, and he called it the Manhattan Project 2.0. And that's where our mentality needs to go. I mean, when you look at our history, they built this entire city of Oak Ridge, and the industry surrounding it needed to help end World War II in just a matter of months. Now, we don't have years to implement this new Manhattan Project 2.0. We've got to get going with it now. And that's the urgency that I see, because these data centers are going to require huge amount of electricity, and we don't have the capability to provide it now. Elon Musk built a huge data center in Memphis, and he bought 15 gas-powered generators to provide electricity for it.
Yeah.
That's not the way to go. We need to have the capability in our TVA infrastructure to provide the power to anybody that wants to build a data center. And I think we're going to be building one here in Oak Ridge before long.
I think
Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's interesting about that site in Memphis. Now, citizens are starting to contact the EPA because the air quality has noticeably gone down in that area. And if you have, I'm not going to say it's because of that, but there's some sort of arithmetic that happens where this thing has been built and now the air quality seems to be worse. So to your point, TVA, I think, has the mechanism in all of these tech companies to manage safe environmental impact so that we're doing this again correctly, thinking about what this facility is going to be doing in 80 years rather than succumbing to the demand of 3 years. Yeah. We need to build the I'm not sure how this equation is really landing on people, but I used it recently. The Manhattan Project was a 3-year gigantic effort. The cleanup for that 3-year effort is 80 plus years.
Yeah.
So we have to manage the next Manhattan Project 2.0 so that we don't have another 80 years of cleanup after this fact. I am confident we have the technology to do that effectively and safely now.
I do. I agree with you. It can be done.
Yeah.
Keith, what were you going to say?
We were talking, the real practical, you know, it's hard to wrap your head around what is the real practical benefit of what's about to happen. Okay, I can give you an example. I was talking several months ago about with one of the heads of Roane County, one of the people that run Roane County, and we were talking about now Roane County. That's where I'm from. I grew up in Kingston. I graduated from the high school that I teach at now. You know, that is my home. So I get to talk about them a little bit. I'm legitimately can talk about them. But for 30 or 40 years, we've needed new schools.
Yeah.
It's just the building that I'm in. I was sitting in class last year and a piece of the ceiling fell on a student's desk. It's falling apart. I mean, you know, it really, really is. Those buildings are old. They're built in the 50s, you know, and we're still there. When I went to interview for that job 4 years ago, I walked in. That was the first time I'd been in that building in 45 years. And I said, it looks exactly the same as it did when I was a student here. So anyway, I guess the point is, it's been a battle between the school board, between the community, the county, the people who pay for it. You know, they needed new schools for a long time, and it's new schools are not cheap. Well, the person that I was talking to said, listen, said the tax revenue that Roane County is going to get from these new nuclear industries that are coming into Roane County will pay for all of our new schools within just a few years, not 10 or 20 years.
Right.
It will pay for building brand new schools throughout the county.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a practical benefit of what's about to happen. And that's in Roane County, you know, and the K-25 site, you know, it straddles the line between Roane County and Anderson County and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a benefit not only for Anderson County and Oak Ridge, but it's a huge benefit for Roane County as well. That's beside the whole job opportunities for our students, you know, for our kids. So that's one practical benefit of all this work that's going to be going on. So
very interesting times we're in.
It is. So Keith, I'll tell you my little fantasy world. There's a school that AMZ gets to work with sometimes called Dilla Springs Elementary School. It's in between Oak Ridge and Oliver Springs. Beautiful, cool little school. Very great teachers. I always love going there. In my fantasy world, somewhere there is an opportunity where a program exists, very much like what ORAU has done with their classroom renovation thing, where you could get one of these companies to come in and sponsor a career pathway for 5 years or something like that. So they would come in, they would infuse their corporate dollars with educational and STEM programming. So suddenly this very small school has an angel benefactor. And if you could pocket these small benefactors on career modules, not just, again, as we've said, not just engineering, but engineering, accounting, communications, down this long list, what a phenomenal opportunity. So not only, as you'd said, this gentleman in Roane County said, we can build schools in no time flat with this kind of influence. What if we also had a pathway where you could become a benefactor, a technical benefactor to these schools? At that point, it's not just about rebuilding the buildings, but you can then internally build. If the building is fine, man, I remember years ago, this is terrifying, years ago when we would have computer lab funding or fundraisers to raise money for a computer lab when a computer lab was a brand new thing. Manhattan Project 2.0, if you had a financial corporate benefactor to go in and implement these small schools with new technology, training for teachers, that kind of enrichment, you would shift this entire region within 12 months.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if Nuclear Science Week works, let me know who wants to help me fund this little initiative I have.
All right. Very good.
It's going to be a good week for sure. You've got a lot being planned.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and letting me talk about this. I'll be happy to answer anybody's questions or funnel that information to me, and I'll be happy to respond.
Good.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ray. And folks, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new Hidden History.